I'm waiting for Michael. Some technical difficulties here this morning. Who else has travel anxiety? Not because like I'm scared to fly, but I'm just trying to remember everything, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get there and be missing something important. So, for those of you guys that don't know, I am heading to Wisconsin tonight tomorrow. I'm gonna go up to Portland tonight, so I'll be there tomorrow evening, and I can't wait to see everybody at Bellwether. It'll be really, really fun. Hi, Susan. Good morning. How are you? We're waiting for Michael. I had some technical difficulties, so I have this feeling I'm not going to see you this week. Is that correct? Which is sad because I love hanging out with you. um maybe sometime soon, but anyway, so I'm really excited to see everybody. It will be great, and it'll be great to be horseback for 3 days straight. I'm super excited. I have some ideas of some technical things, so I'm wondering if Michael is going to join us or not. I suspect as soon as I put my phone in the tripod, then it will be like, Michael wants to join you. So you would think if I was suggesting, I would say, look, put that button near the top. Don't put it at the bottom. Um, Maybe he's not going to make it today. Do you think? So the weather is generally cooperating here, although not ideal. Just because I do have to go up to the airport tonight. Here we go. This will be sort of better here. Um, Hopefully I won't make it, and I'm so sad. I know. I had a feeling because we would already be talking about it. Right. Okay. So, Susan, let me ask you this. Who else is here this morning? Stephanie, do you have surveys for us? I do. I do. That is actually on my list to do right away after the show. So, Michael is struggling here. He's okay. Am I back? He says just a second. So, yes, I do have surveys for you, and I'm very excited to hear what you have to do. I'm using a little bit of a different platform. I'm just going to use Google Forms or something. Gemini is going to help me figure that out. But yes is the answer. I do. And then I was thinking maybe I'd bring you a little printout. So I have some technical things that I would like to play around with. One of the things for those of you guys that have been um, doing all this for a little bit longer, I really want to talk about haunches in, because I think I see a lot of times, and I've done this too, where people are getting their horses disengaged. I mean, honestly, it's like you could have your horse disengaged when uh, the hindquarters go away from you, right? But when you're doing haunches in, let's say along a wall, especially along a wall or a curve that doesn't help you kind of know exactly where you're going, you can actually have the horse disengaged that way as well. So I want you to know about that as you start to get into level 4 and 5. The other thing, welcome to the Horsemanship Remark Show.
That's my line.
I know, but you were so late. I did it myself.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
We're
I,
we're
I
falling down on the whole 8:30 thing.
yeah, we need to tighten up.
Tighten
I
up.
was,
Yeah.
you know, anyway, I was trying to plug my light into outlet. What am I trying to say? The little electrical strip.
Power strip.
Yeah, a power strip, and I think that's unplugged. Anyway, figured it out. I'm glad it works, but I was running around trying to find a different lamp. So anyway, so Susan, I was asking Susan if she's read The Third Way. I'm very curious about that. Good morning from Lori, Julie, and Joanne. Good morning. I can't wait to see you guys. I'm super excited. So anyway, did you hear me saying about hunches in?
No.
Well, you know how hunches in can kind of accidentally, if someone hasn't really thought through the whole thing, it can actually disengage the horse as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I thought we would talk about that perhaps a little bit, depending on where you guys are getting down the line. I'm pretty excited to see Rooster and see what this situation is. And then even if we don't get this till Monday, Michael, I thought we would play with that one thing that I was doing with Rook and Katniss that day. Really, um, kind of using the tightest curve ever in the history of forever and walking the hindquarters underneath. You remember that video I sent you months?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I thought we could do that a little bit. So it'll depend how you guys,
Yes.
have the
I'm game for that. That's going to be pretty accessible.
yeah, cool. That'll be fun.
I've been
Well,
I've been working on we're not going until the hindquarters have gone and we're kind of full.
mhm,
I kind of um defining the front of the rectangle until we reach a spot of preparedness, then open up for it to move forward is a little bit how I've been thinking about it. Like, oh, don't go forward yet, not like that. Like, let's get organized. Now we go forward.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, definitely,
Which
Sarah.
which is interesting for me. That get organized still is largely step up from behind, which I have them generally, alive enough to the leg and the energy to do that. And, you know, obviously a positive response to the rain that rounds them too, that it's not just a hard hold. If there's brace there, it can't. But um, I think well, they're just being there in that spot or ending in that spot without needing any encouragement is the piece of that way of going and the encouragement into that way of going carrying itself to where then it's not hindquarters leave first so we can be round, then we travel forward. It just goes that way, which on the best of days, that's where we arrive. Um, and I have to be thinking about that more through a ride to make sure I'm not unnecessarily managing or creating that
Yeah.
when the horse actually doing it for themselves is what we're after.
Also, I guess that's part of
And
the
if
thing.
you're doing it for them, that's not going to be peaceful either.
Plus, you can't.
Well, yeah.
you know, but I get your point.
But if you're constantly saying, do this, do it like this, do it like that, I mean, even if they're moving their body, if you're not, I don't know. I guess it's a backing off of helping them, making suggestions, setting parameters, and then gradually letting go of, here's like, now let's do. And they're like, oh, okay, I'm doing.
Yeah, and it depends on how much you have to manufacture it in the first place.
Hmm.
You know, uh, yeah, for sure. How much it's inevitable, like we talked about in summer.
Yeah.
It, it's funny because I was thinking about, and you guys all know this, but isn't it funny how distracting talking about the mechanics to your horse is as soon as you don't need to anymore?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like So I was thinking about this phrase. I've been down the physics hole for the last couple of weeks, but I was thinking about and this is, if you're a physicist, just forgive my imperfection here. But we want to. It's sort of on the money, sort of not. But we sort of want to wake up our horse's electrons and then help them order them through time and space, right? So we're coming at that one way or the other. Like either the horse is fizzed up and order is like really really important, so that they're not just scattered all over the place. Or you can kind of come to it from the other way, where like nothing's, Liz Buck would say, you gotta have some movement, but it's like, let's wake this creature up so that we can have some uh movement through time and space. And so that's the whole game, isn't it? Because it's like we can influence that, but we can't do it for them.
Yeah.
And so aren't we just calculating when we have influence?
Yeah. And how much we're giving up to the horse, or how much influence the horse might need to consider a change in pattern, change in behavior, change in response to a suggestion or an invitation.
Hmm. I was
Like if you
thinking,
think about it, a suggestion in it, if we are truly, honestly, from your heart suggesting, think of someone who likes to give advice, and they're, oh, I'm just suggesting, but their suggestions in the past have been like kind of pushy, kind of like, well, you really like, this is what you should do. And rather than just a pure, like, here's an idea, like, I'm very detached from it. You take it or leave it. Um, there is no pressure involved. But if it is truly a suggestion, it's like, well, you can go with this or not. And then that has to be emotionally separate from,
mhm,
and in the horse's mind, I would say separate from your follow through.
say that part.
I don't, it has to be separate from, in the horse's mind, your follow through on, in some way. Otherwise, is it really a suggestion
It,
or an invitation?
what do you mean by it?
Your suggestion, is your suggestion actually a suggestion, or maybe it is a suggestion. um One way that Dave Ellis used to explain, um I just, well, you've done this for years. uh so if you ask your horse to move out in the round corral, and there they go. They're off, but you want them to be responsible to maintain gait. So you're not just kind of constantly having to drive them along, obviously. It can He explained it in two ways, both of which I thought were useful and interesting. The first is, your suggestion is the mare. If we're thinking about wild horses, the mare is saying, let's go over this way. You're opening up your energy saying, let's go. You are now the mare saying, come on, head over here. There's water. We're all going this way, or there's danger over there. Let's go here. And then followed up by the stallion coming along saying, the mare is in charge, but I'm going to follow through and say, by instinct, we have to all stay together. So your invitation, your suggestion is the mare leading the group off, and your follow through is some sort of impulse from behind. Let's say we're going forward, impulse from behind saying, get up there, the safety is up there. The good feeling is up there. The security of our herd is up there. Um, and I haven't watched Horses in the Wild enough to know if that's actually how it goes down. But that was his characterization of it. So your invitation, your good deal is the mare, and then whatever follow through, plan B, however you want to describe it, um, is like this other entity separate from the invitation, right? Or the suggestion. So the mare isn't like, it's a good idea to follow here. And then also being the one that's like, no, seriously, you follow me here. Like it was a suggestion, but it's not really a suggestion. The other way he described it, and this is specific to maintaining gait in around corral, let's say, where you could be riding to, um, is kind of okay. Off we go. You're going. I have said energy in my body indicating we're still moving, but when the horse breaks gait, does not maintain their responsibility, which is, kind of another plat or rubric, I guess. When they break gait, you can run out and tag that spot where they just were. Don't go after them, just tag the spot. And the way he described it was the sky is falling. If we're going along together, the energy is flowing along and we're in sync, all is good. Like you're with the herd, to go back to the mare leading the herd thing. But the moment you break gate and we fall out of sync, the sky falls, right? Something comes down, tags that spot. If you maintain with me, like we stay clear of the sky falling. But the moment you break gate, we fall out of sync. I knew if you kept going, we'd be good. But you didn't know. You thought, oh, well, slowing down might be better. You didn't realize the sky was going to fall. And the sky falling is sort of this other entity that's sort of, in some sense, detached from
A
the let's
consequence.
be together. What's that? A consequence, yes. But the consequence not coming from an emotional place in you saying, I made a suggestion. You should have followed my suggestion.
That's sort
My
of
suggestion was better than everything else. If it's detached, just a here's my suggestion. This is what harmony is. You know, so they come into the pressure, I guess, because the pressure is detached from any emotive place in you or any demanding place in you, coming
that.
up against the edges that are just very neutral emotionally.
What's cool about that is then it doesn't require you to have that emotion. Can you don't have to sustain being emotional
Hmm.
in order for them to be motivated, to do
Yeah.
X, Y, or Z. And then, of course, I guess you could. The thing, well, did you have anything else on that? That
Um, no, my brain went to someone was helping yesterday and just the space between the suggestion and the follow through and the flash moment judgment call that's needed there, that for me is, and for many that have been practicing this for a while, is like those judgment calls are made so easily and effortlessly, like just faster than you can describe them. But helping this gal yesterday, like, okay, uh, give the chance. Don't just automatically follow through. Make the call. Give the time. Maybe this time the horse didn't respond, but that was information for the next time. Um, I just started thinking, as I was thinking last night, how do I emphasize? And she's younger, and half of the lessons she's kind of spacey and distracted. So like, you only have so much time to actually effectively get too much done. But how to help her slow down and focus on learning to make that judgment on where the follow through is needed. Is the horse arranging themselves? Are they following a suggestion? Am I offering a suggestion, or am I just kind of going through motions? Which I think that's part of it for her. She wants to get to the riding. So some of the groundwork is like, let's get this over with. So, and she has I mean, she can move the horse. She knows the movements, but it's a little bit, it's not progressing to a feel following a feel
Yeah. Suppose
in the race.
kind of the cut and dried, the bottom line is you have to have enough data collection
Yeah.
for it to become intuitive for you to be on time. Otherwise, you're late AF all the time.
Or you're not actually offering, you're just shooshing them through on things, which is her default. I'm like, okay, be in there, like actually ask him to do something. And then the flag just keeps going and going. It's like, okay, now back off. And then we're back to not following through because she's not making the call moment to moment quick enough, whether she needs some sort of follow through or
Is
not.
that
What's
no?
that?
Is that intuition that she doesn't have because she doesn't have enough data collection to make that call?
Probably, but that's the how do I point to the data on the days where I have the opportunity and she's focused enough to do it? How do I help her see the data as opposed to it just being stuff happening that she's not observing because her attention isn't being drawn toward it? She could do what she's doing for years
Yeah.
and think, oh, well, this is great and this is fine, unless, you know, a coach steps in and says, let's adjust how this is doing. Let's talk about our goal. Let's talk about what we're wanting this to look like, and then what observations can be made in the process to take us toward that goal, as opposed to just kind of careening through this pattern that we've done that does not have a lot of feel to it and is going to be very inconsistent because the horse is going to be because there's not the timing between, or even not even the timing, but the just consistency of a suggestion, even if it has a lot of presence, and then the follow through being there where needed. It's like suggestion, okay, it's not getting it done. Okay, now we're gonna do follow through, but then we're just follow throughing everywhere. Follow throughing. Um, yeah. Any case.
Yeah, the horse, let's just say maintaining gait or moving their own body, trending towards what you have in mind, what the person has in mind. It's so dependent on, to whatever degree, it could be a lot or a little, but it's so dependent on the person directing their own mental and emotional state. I mean, if you want your horse hooked on
Hmm.
that, you're not constantly washing around between being too early and too late. Good morning, Lisa. So that's where ordering our internal state so that they can hook on, so that they can start to do stuff. You know what else I keep thinking about, Michael, is this whole thing working is so dependent on what we want our horses to do being suitable to them.
Yeah.
Because otherwise there's just so much distraction, or we would call it static in the signal, uh, that you're trying to, we don't do this, but let's just say, the horse is so distracted by trying to go against their nature,
Mhm.
you know?
And yet, it's amazing they will,
They
but it
totally.
it kinda shuts a certain thing off.
Mm-hmm. It just requires a certain amount of maintenance.
Yeah.
And that's even before the horse starts to break
And
down physically.
and you can yeah, I mean, you still have to steer them in the right direction. I was gonna say, if you are setting it up and letting the horse move their own body, in theory, if they're moving their own body, they're finding it. But you can also be in the way of that or inadvertently encouraging them to do things on their own, moving their own body in a way that is not natural to them. Like, and they can learn to move their own body in ways that are not conducive to sustained, whether it be in the moment, sustained effort, or longevity.
Mhm. Yeah, and I suppose it's always degrees too, because like no matter what we do, good, bad, ugly, the horse is moving its own body.
Hmm.
I mean, there's so it's like, but what mental gymnastics or physical gymnastics are in the way if it doesn't suit the horse?
Yeah.
Mentally, emotionally, physically, and then of course, if stuff's in the way, they can learn to just navigate it.
Hmm. They can
But they're
learn to get by even through it. Yeah.
right, so long as there's enough consistency, then you know what I'm saying in terms of the horse, moving their own body. Do you want to hear? You guys want to hear one tiny little physics thing that I think is interesting?
Sure.
So I've just been exploring the idea of entropy a little bit. You familiar with that? So, uh, oh no, there goes Michael. That's how much he thinks about uh, the physics lesson. Can you guys hear me? I don't want to explain this again. Well, let me ask you all. When I think it's hard because in some ways we are talking, meaning you guys, Michael and I, are talking about, trying to learn what does suit the horse. And oh, he's gone. Steph. You guys, I don't know how to. I hope Michael can maybe use that. I wonder if he can use the link that I already gave him today. I bet he can. He's gonna have to try. Something happened. Here we go. Oh, good. He can come back. Good, good, good. Hang on just a second. Let's add. Yeah, I bet you he's. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad we know that that original link still works when that happens. So you can come
It's
back.
when you freeze that we have a problem because you're the one that initiates the live.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I can hear you. All right. So, Jeannie says, check out is that how you say it? Piaget's cognitive development theory. She's young. She's likely in the transition from concrete optional formal operational stages. How to coach. Ooh, cool. Jeannie, can you please remind me of that? And I would love to talk more about it. Okay, so one thing, Michael, thank you for bringing that up, Jeannie. She always has the best stuff to talk about. She's so smart and so great. Jeannie, as I'm learning to expand tier one and tier three vocabulary, I'm like just getting the grip on the fact that those are for me, really, a little bit, and then really the expansion of like tier one is where, so I know you do that. You translate and connect. Yeah, please do. Okay, so entropy. Here's the thing. Second law, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Second law of thermodynamics, everything wants to expand out, right? So things within a certain data set are going to have a certain amount of chaos or order, right? And something that is completely ordered is dead. Something that is constantly expanding is still like unavailable energy. And we could, there's more to think about in regards to that. But if we think about a horse, this is what's interesting to me. If we think about a horse, that is really interesting, discussing, like I was saying, all the stuff at one time, and then my mind will not stop looping it back to horsemanship. Like it's just crazy. It's like a magnet, like this giant magnet, you know. Um, so total entropy. In other words, energy with no boundaries is unavailable energy. I believe that's part of the definition of entropy, right? It's unavailable energy, unharnessed energy, right? And then the same applies. So if we think of a horse that's coming unglued because they're just in total entropy, right? They're not really, but total chaos. Like you cannot direct that until you order it to some degree, right? And that's why horses need us in situations where they have no framework for being ordered. They're miserable, and certainly unavailable to us to use, right? Or to be in harmony with. Yeah. Thermodynamic entropy, a measure of unavailable energy for work. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Kim, thank you. Kimberly. So, point being, if we think about a horse that is completely disordered, we cannot help, or they cannot, like, we cannot function. Everything is unavailable, even though it's like so much, which, Michael, I think about, then we have degrees of unavailability. Okay, so then on the other side, I was thinking about the mule or the pony that is laying down in the arena. But I'm not going to help. We're done. It's over. They are full of potential energy, but it is unavailable. So this is Kimberly. You know what I mean? Like this is also a state of entropy, which I was really struggling like to get my bearing around. And then I was thinking about Michael. And then so now we have obviously chaos and stochasticity. I know,
I
but
like how you said that. And then we have Michael. So, we obviously have chaos. Like there was an odd jump from one thing to the next that paired those two things together.
I didn't finish my sentence. So
I
I was
know.
just thinking about somebody like you that doesn't have to have the horse as ordered as I do. Like you can start with a level of stochasticity, which is basically just variations within certain parameters. Like you can have high variations, or less, and then as the horse moves towards being a bridle horse, you obviously still have variations within a movement. You have, us, the horse, and the human individual operating together. And the more kind of ordered we become, we don't eliminate variation, but we do order it. Right? Am I saying that correctly, you guys? So I think of you being happy to ride a bucking horse or a horse that's kind of much, much more disordered than I'm interested in, right? Because so I'm going to order things more on the ground before I crawl on that thing, because I'm not as adept at kind of riding the wave. you know but we're still ordering things in the same way. It's kind of cool, just because the horse still needs us to help them depending on the situation. This is where directing the feet and starting to build something to operate on, is something that the horse naturally desires, and Michael desires it less than I do. you know, but in the end, we're heading towards the same thing. So I really did think of you when I was thinking about a starting place, because we can't just this is where talking about life, like how much life can you use, how much life do you actually want? Ray and Buck are talking about that all the time, like, be careful what you wish for, because you can only handle so much, and some of that is physical skill and long legs, and some of that is knowing what's going to happen before what happens, so you can kind of be ahead of the deal, like ahead of the, let's say, the ping pong, you know
Mhm.
um so we cannot remove all the choice, and we cannot remove, because then it would be total determinism. So you have entropy, total entropy, and total determinism, right? And neither are good. Neither of it is what any horse person wants. It's the stuff in between that we kind of start with, depending on our personality or our skill level, and where the horse is coming from, education level, and then we move towards a middle ground, and depending on our skill level or our experience, I just think it's interesting that, let's say, you're coming from the least amount of life, let's just say the least amount of life, and you're trying to pep the horse up. You're going to try to, as best you can, get to where you can still organize things, right? And that's an interesting puzzle, because you want to get to that section as quickly as you can, whether you're coming from it from your desire or tendency, like, let's have some chaos, and it's exciting, and then we're going to order it, where I'm like, all right, I don't want my mule laying in the dirt, but like, in some ways I would rather try to convince it to get up and do something than, have it bouncing off the walls and, trying to buck me off. So, homing in on the place where that individual horse on that individual day, and, you know, us as an individual human on that individual day, can start to operate together. But this is what I've been thinking about, is like, there's a minimum amount of energy that we need, no matter how you slice it, for the animal to be moving their own body and not laying on the ground. And of course, for those of us that are in this game, like, the ultimate shitty picture is sort of the horse trudging around, fit into a box that does not suit them. So they're barely moving their own body. The more they learn the exact parameters without the flicker that we that causes us to feel awesome when we interact with our horse, the worse. Like, that's the robotic horse that's just doing what they have to survive. you know it's like, in some ways, it can be like a highly trained horse operating like that is kind of like total determinism, and their spirit is just gone. But what are your thoughts on that? Because no matter how much I would love to have to be living on the edge of chaos, Jeannie, Kimberly, oh my gosh, I'm like, yes, that is what we're talking about, to live on the edge of chaos. But you can pick up with a horse, Michael, closer to the edge of chaos than I can.
I'm I'm more comfortable doing that, and it's more exciting to me. Uh, but the degree to which it holds there and it's not ordered is,
Yeah, I guess that's a bit of
you
a
know,
dead end. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, you're not progressing if it's holding there. You're not actually helping the horse. You're maybe having a fun time because you enjoy it, but the question is the horse having a fun time and where are you getting? So,
Yeah, and then on the other hand, like we would say, I don't know, because if you stay in this flat part, if we're, I guess I'm just thinking of it like total entropy, total determinism. I don't know, and then we have some level of chaos and stochasticity in the middle. Okay, so some of us are happier near the top or the bottom, right? But both of them are dead ends, I guess is all I'm saying.
mhm.
Yes, no, maybe so.
Yeah, I mean, there are, I suppose, within a being limits to the degree of, I mean, there's limits to the body. Like you can't get more determined, right? You can't get more, entropy on the bottom end of things where it's just unavailable because the horse is dead. You can't get much more unavailable than that. Um, and then within any horse's physical size, musculature, capability, energy, power, there are limits to that too, most of which, or, some of which you just wouldn't even want to mess around with and you would do your groundwork first. Others, it's like, it's organized enough, I'm going to stay in the saddle.
That's right.
Um, but, even on that horse, it, it could be theoretically, um, because it's dictated also by the mind how much chaos that horse's body, it's not necessarily its physical ability is the limit, it's the limit mentally of how much effort am I willing to put in, how much, you know
That's what I'm
um,
driving at,
yeah.
right? That's what I'm driving at. And because each one of us obviously comes with a different set of natural, our body is naturally going to be more energetic or less energetic, let's say. But then the training of the mind and the intellectual evolution there, I suppose, and kinetic practice is what helps us to get to. I mean, you could say climb up or climb down, you know, to the middle. So we need to. I guess what I'm saying is one of the things that occurs to me is it's really not about like a hot horse, let's say a thoroughbred, that comes from a higher level of chaos naturally. Yeah, I think that's right. And then maybe a horse like the marshmallow that is like pretty predictable, pretty ordered, but very less, lots less, a lot less energy. I'm playing with that idea, right, Michael? And you're not trying to make the horse into something. This is part of the key. I don't have. I'm missing a few little pieces there, but not wanting the horse to be something else than what they were that they came to naturally. It's not about that. It's about creating a little more possibility in the horse that is like, let's say, the laying down horse, right? And then it's ordering the possibilities that a person starts with. That's why like Gary or Buck or would, or I've heard Charlotte Dujardin call it, I love hot horses, then all you have to do is steer. Well, what she's saying is when you have unlimited possibilities, much easier to order those possibilities if you have a whole bunch on the table.
Hmm.
Uh, So to the same degree that it's not really that we're wishing our horses different, although I suppose if you're stuck with one horse, perhaps you do wish that their natural bent is one way or the other. But then we come to the table that way too.
Your horse is wishing you had a bent, a little bit more of a bent one way or the other.
Good morning, Gabrielle.
Hot horse or not, you come to the table just very flat. Pretty quick, they're like, "Ooh, this is boring." And then you come to the table all just like kind of wired and chaotic yourself. And hot horse or not, they're going, "Wow, you're kind of a piece of work to live with." Mm.
Yeah, so part of what I'm trying to tease out here is I believe that this, like, let's say we develop a bridle horse.
Mhm.
It's not total order. It's not total predictable order. It's just enough, that you're resonating in a way that you're not stripping either the person or the horse of any of its nature. Would you say that? I mean, I guess we could yeah, because a horse, even the most frantic horse, if you put them in a trailer they've never been in before, like, or run them in a chute or whatever, they're either, you know, just if you put them with their friends in an environment they will find homeostasis. I guess that's a little bit part of it too, is like, because it's a living thing and we're a living thing, we're both going to have the ultimate desire for homeostasis, which, wouldn't we say that's the middle? Jeannie, help me. That's the middle, right? And we're of the rectangle, the middle of the rectangle, the horse that is educated, balanced mentally, emotionally, physically. And the reason it's important to think about these things, other than just kind of a fun intellectual exercise, is because I feel like if it provides a certain amount of order to our thoughts, I think, and a certain amount of recognition of, like, look, we're all heading to the center. If we're doing this horsemanship in the same way, or meaning, we're trying to get to the same place, so let's presume that.
Which we're not, but ours is more similar amongst this group. But
You think we're not trying to get to the same place?
sure as hell we're not. There's plenty of people that enjoy their horse being a little bit more chaos, similar to the way I don't mind it over against what you'd prefer, that want to and enjoy living there.
Yeah, but you still want to make a bridle horse.
Well, as I'm saying, if their goal is not a bridle horse, their goal is to enjoy the chaos.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I guess I'm saying you and
That's
me
what
and
I said.
our, like,
Yes,
yeah,
but there are
for
plenty of people who aren't on the do not have the goal that we would have.
yeah, barely ordered chaos. Like, I
Yes.
think of a few sports in horses that is the thing. Is like quite pell mell. I
And then
guess.
when you talk about are we asking them to do something that is against their nature or that they wouldn't wish for themselves or some however you want to describe it. It's like sure as hell you do, but you do it in a way that fits their nature, that works within their nature to help them cope with what in their nature they might have said, no way. And you could list all kinds of examples there. You know, saddling, trailer loading, tying off to a cow, getting your nose up in the smoke of a branding fire, you know, going into a stadium of thousands of people, going down an alley with a bunch of sounds on either side that they can't see what's going on, or behind the chutes, behind the banners at the end of the arena. All of those things are naturally um, threatening to a horse, some more than others, right? Depending on their state. Um, but you're certainly moving them if you're trying to create a bridle horse or just a horse you can function on in multiple capacities, move from point A to point B, get into the wash stall to clean them, sound of the water down the drain, looks like a pit. Like all these things are things the horse should naturally be skeptical of on some level. Um, and yet, um, you can work within their nature to get them to help them see that the things that they might otherwise go are manageable, are not a threat.
Hmm. Right. Education and exposure. I guess I sort of have always operated on the premise that while all the things you just mentioned are not natural to a horse, there is a benefit to the horse of being educated.
The horse
And
doesn't know that though.
true, true, for sure. But they will. This, this I guess is what I'm saying. Where let's just take watching Buck ride some of his horses, where it appears to me that an unshakable place of peace, in other words, more unshakable
Hmm.
they would have been if they had never met him, is a benefit. Not because it's become so deterministic that they don't have a choice, but because they are internally, have moved towards, right, stochastic equilibrium. And this, towards the middle. Let's just say that. Well, I mean, this is just a different way to say peace, right?
Yeah.
But it's the important part. This is the important part that I'm trying to tease out, is that moving to the middle, you're not in the dream scenario. You're not taking anything away. It's just enough order where you leave agency as much as possible to the horse, so that we haven't had to erase or squash anything. That's the dream.
Hmm.
It's important because let's say, I have a horse that's more fractious that I don't want to ride because it's dangerous. Or even you, a horse that you might be willing to bounce around on in good footing. If it's slippery, then you're going to be like, okay, this is not going to work. We have to have some more order, you know, for that to be doable. So my point is, even though like I might have to, and how imperfect I would be. Let's just take an example. How imperfect I would be, because I would want to probably come. I'd be shooting for the middle as best I could, but I'd probably come down farther. you know but the more, and then want to return to the middle from that direction, where you could maybe do more of the minimum, right? Order more of them, and then the horse, and this is what we're talking about, the horse then will suck to the middle.
They will be attracted to the middle if you're. They're attracted to peace and equilibrium, and the more you set the parameters and are chaotic in your parameters, that makes the like the young gal I was describing, there's not the consistency there that allows there to be a middle for the horse to find. And so they might develop this pattern if I wasn't saying anything, and they'd do their thing and it would be correct or incorrect, and the horse would be unenthused, or but it would become a thing. It's just how much, so they would find a kind of an equilibrium, but is it the fullness of where the horse is moving his own body, but is it the fullness of where the horse is feeling peace about the whole thing, or is it just a spot where the chaos that she's presenting is accepted and managed to the point of the horse, you know, finding their way in the midst of that to the most harmonious response possible, given the chaos of the way, the disorderedness of the way she's offering it.
And then the
But
horse,
but but the more you offer it with skill and feel toward the horse, the more that pattern of being together is life-giving and centering and peaceful for the horse, as opposed to just a getting along.
which
And
is
that's what they're hunting, right? They're hunting to get along, but they're really hunting peace, right?
which, and I just feel like the word homeostasis, and the reason that's important, an important word, is just it kind of proves that this is 100% natural, and a natural imperative for all living things. Like, we're not making this up. Like, this is real, right? So, and the horse that's coming, or you think of like a person that goes from just being a total blob in their room, whatever, just doing nothing. In other words, no available power. How does that person move hypothetically from that to being a marathon runner? Okay, there's who knows, some level of inspiration, right? So a horse that comes from, by hook or crook, naturally, or taught from, entropy, that's more like unavailable power because nothing is moving. What inspires that creature to start to move towards the middle from the other direction? And
What do you mean from the other direction?
from, let's say, laying on the ground not doing anything, because we could say, well, I've really only seen that maybe once, I think, but we hear it talked about. But you could say,
Seen
well, we,
what once?
a horse just laying on the ground, just like,
Forget it.
mhm, it's like, I will wait here until you leave. And then I will go about my business. And I've heard that horses, uh, and mules have done that just because too much choice has been removed. It's too much determinism, and then not like they just opt out. But also probably too much chaos, I would imagine. You know, which would be a total freeze response. So there's different ways to say, like, a total freeze response would be from, like, too much chaos, and the kind of the opt out, none of this works for me, very calculated, like, it comes from too much determinism, right? So you can kind of,
The stubborn mule, right? That's where they get that reputation of like, I'm not game for this.
right.
There's no dignity in this. There's no consistency. This is just barking orders with zero feel.
Correct. With not enough inspiration, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and no, and the thing about a mule is like no amount of scaring it is going to give it inspiration in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
Right. So it's kind of funny to think about that, really, in terms of, like, is that a freeze response? Because I don't know. The one I saw was not a freeze response. The one I saw was just like, this is I'm not in, like, I'm not going to participate. in your deal. Not because I'm so afraid I've essentially fainted,
Mm.
but because like I'm just not inspired at all. Yeah, barking orders with zero feel. Right, exactly. And almost like Eva, don't you think like pretty much nobody we hang out with does that, right? But anyway, coming from the horse or the mule that's laying on the ground, so you have total entropy that way. Okay, so that's very very rare. But the gradients above it are not rare. you know the gradients above it are where a lot of us operate or have friends that operate from that situation. So that's where it's like your tools are limited in some ways unless you're trying to scare the horse or bounce the horse way past the middle in order then to have something to direct, right? But the idea of taking a horse, let's just say, from less available energy for whatever reason, in other words less inspired, well then the more we can think to ourselves, okay, the goal here is inspiration for that creature to be more involved versus like I should do this technique so that I spit the horse out into total chaos and then magically I'm going to have some skills to order that when everything's going faster and is about. Good luck. I mean, maybe, but good luck. And the other thing, Michael, I wanted to bring this up. We can talk about this more too, but we have a certain horse that we know that, oh, let's say, that was super poofy, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and loved it. Loves living there. And without the interaction, without the expression, without the inspiration, perhaps without the opportunity, that horse has wilted. I know. We're going to repair. So otherwise, but it is heartbreaking. But my point in saying it is like it's like this is not something we're imagining. Like you can see it physically in this 1,000 pounds. Like there's a shrinking, there's a withering. Withering and wilting is real, and not because there's not enough exercise available, but because there's a certain amount of inspiration and appreciation and love that I think, I mean, it's kind of a wonderment to think about. Well, if we think about homeostasis, this is where we can't get around the fact that it's not just food, water, sunlight. There's something else. But that particular situation that we're talking about is so physically, it's undeniable. This is not a because you would think, oh, this is going to happen from aging or from a lameness or from being locked in jail too much or from whatever, right? But this is way too fast for that, and it's just too freaking obvious. I'm saying it again, like looking with my eyeballs.
Well, yeah, and there are lots of examples of that. I mean, frankly, I mean that one's closer to heart, more extreme, maybe in the swing, but I've seen a lot of horses that could be one way and are just completely shut down because they're being picked at, or
Mm.
some horses because they're being loved to death and smothered. And the horse is like, oh my gosh, but this is all they ever do is be like, you know, pet on and groomed, and but then like not encouraged to move, in fact, discouraged from doing anything. and just kind of drilled to where the horse is like, oh my gosh, and kind of contained, even if you're not holding them back, because maybe they're already maybe not the most energetic horse. And then you can get them in the hands of someone else who maybe doesn't even do that much more with them, but doesn't smother them, doesn't squish them down emotionally. And that horse might be way more bright and interested in the world and have lots of energy to offer. Um, and then some, they just don't operate that way, but you can evoke that without a lot beyond just seeing them and, well, without a lot, with having good feel and, you know, um, which isn't necessarily easy, but it's not physically demanding. And it's certainly not demanding it of the horse. But you also temper your expectations. That horse is not going to be one that's bouncing off the walls, maybe at
Um,
any point, right? They
uh,
might be energetic unless blow it up to that point, but they might be energetic, but it's going to peak and they're going to get scared by the deer that just crashed through the fence and made a bunch of noise, but they're going to run a little ways, turn and look at it, as opposed to the one who gets their tail in the air and runs around for 15 minutes, snorting and being dramatic. But they can certainly brighten and be enthused and feel good about finding the center, even though they're not necessarily intrinsically motivated to move their body that way and go up and jumping around. It still feels good to them to move their body and to find a center that helps them move their body in a way that's not schlumpy and whatever. So you do have something to offer that horse that they may not have exercised on their own. I mean, I think of a lot of horses out in the wild. A lot of them do not move real nice, even though they have the ability to. They might when they're out sparring or playing with friends or, you know, but they just kind of poke along sometimes and their bodies are not, they're a little schlumpy when they need not be because they've just traveled from point A to point B. Now they're maybe a little more fit if they're going up and down hills and but they can still do that with especially if their body isn't prone to be conformationally and structurally very square. But they're going to feel better if you can help them get to a spot where they are more balanced. Um, and that's possible without mashing on them or creating the chaos that you might have in another horse that's just naturally full of energy. That's just a matter of directing that energy. Um,
I think it's valuable to think this stuff out. And I was talking to Buck yesterday. I'm like, there is value in this to me, partially because it informs the way that we go about this, kinetically. But also, you kind of have to believe that they're drawn to the center and that the center is a benefit.
well, they're drawn to the center to the degree to which it's attractive and is of benefit.
Yeah,
Right.
of course. But I guess
Like
I'm,
if the center is a spot of like I just got to cope with this because then that homeostasis is not attractive, it's a coping, right? Like there's a spot where I'm just getting along because this is where like the horse being water, like this is where the water's going to settle.
yes, yes, exactly.
There's nowhere else to go aside from pooling right here in this situation, but it might not be where the water wants to be.
I knew you would come to the table with some cool shit. Okay, but so then but that thing is that you totally are right. That could be mistaken for the middle, but it really is just too much determinism.
Yeah.
But could seem like the middle because maybe it's kind of far from like the other side.
Far from the chaos that the horse had that the person might have been uncomfortable with.
And the reverse is obviously true. If suddenly you have more life, then you're like, oh, thank God. This seems much more like to the middle. Maybe it is.
Mhm.
Maybe you've just overshot it by a little bit, and we're all going to do that. And also, there's only so much that you can cram into one moment. I think I don't know. We'd have to think about that a little bit more. As I was thinking about that in terms of like cramming so much information into my head over the last 5 weeks or so, just like a greedy little Hoover. But it's like you could kind of feel where you're like, all right, time has to go by because I am absolutely hitting the limit of what is useful. I can continue to run it through my prefrontal cortex, but it's like this is just useless at a certain point. Time has to go by. You have to run it through the flicker of reality. So I
Have
don't
to,
know.
yeah, practice it, experience it, reflect on it within the within the reality of day-to-day life and interaction, horses or people. Yeah.
And I think the horses maybe have some of that. That's where it's like, you got to kind of let your horse sleep on it. You have to let some days go by. You have to. And what's interesting is it's like, oh, that's not the horse practicing it, but they do sort of sit with it. That's kind of an interesting thing to think about. Nathan and I talk about that a lot. Like there's a certain amount of suns and moons or sunrises and sunsets that are kind of part of the process. You cannot eliminate that. Perhaps that's biological, like stuff has to grow or something. I don't know. Jeannie says horses have no prefrontal cortex. We do. We offer a plan for them to follow. Within the plan, our leadership, we bring them to center in a place of peace. Yeah, Jeannie, this is the additional thought though, because you're 100% right. It's just, I think, and you don't do this at all. But we know that some people do. What they try to do is order things so much that you completely miss the mark. You end up at total determinism or as close to total determinism as you think you could, because you're trying to order things so much. And the problem with that is then it removes agency. It just burns the whole thing out from the other side. Right. So yeah, to the same degree that the computer helps us order thoughts and ideas and can keep track of things better than our prefrontal cortex, our prefrontal cortex is a benefit to the horse to some degree. But isn't it funny how fast that value evaporates? Then we have to switch into our the back of our brain. That's the tricky part. But it's cool. I don't know. I guess I was just thinking of how we dance around all the we dance around the middle, hunting to the center, and or kind of like a sensor, on a beach, looking for the, you're just like kind of in the area and like listening to the feedback. Anyway, but I guess it's not just a mental exercise is all I'm saying is like there's an element of um using the discussion as a way to hone in on the moments where we and or the horse are heading, kind of towards the middle.
Well, let's say it this way. It is and can be applicable, but it is a mental exercise in that it's not
Kinetic, yeah.
It's not imperative to the experience to understand or to experience it. To You
Hmm.
don't have to describe it and talk about it in these terms.
Hmm.
So in that way, it's opening up the ability to talk about it on another level. Um, but it is more of a developing a vocabulary, which is it's not meaningless by any means, but it's not imperative to living the experience.
That's a good
It's
way. My dad and I were talking about this yesterday, just because we were talking about the difference between, you know, living something, obviously, and all the writings and all the land forever and ever. Well, so it made me think of, like, well, why do we write it out? Why do we talk about it? Why do we um uh memorialize it, in words? And doesn't that loop back to two things? First of all, helping other people find their way, and also, and you guys know this is a big one for me, is connecting.
hmm
Some sort of way to have a shared experience. But you're exactly right, and of course dad was talking about it from a different perspective a little bit. But it's like, well, it can't replace talking about it or filing it or mathematizing it or whatever is digitizing it is not going to replace living it, and it's not required for living it, as you say.
hmm
It's true. And who cares? We don't want it to. That's not the goal.
hmm
That's part of it. It's like having the show or talking about sharing, taking a picture, doing a video. The goal is not to replace the actual experience, but it's an enhancement, perhaps, or I don't know. Yeah, it's a way to help our. It helps me. It helps me to talk about it, to on many levels, but also in terms of my practice, in terms of what I can do to help myself get to that place. But yes, of course, you're 100% right. It's not required necessarily. It's helped me a lot, though, to get to the place where I can, and then of course being able to
Then
bond,
you what's that?
then being able to bond with the people over it.
Yeah. Then you have to be able to walk it back too, for like you said in your text, I promise.
Hmm. Hmm.
Which I'm curious as to how how easy that will be.
Well, I hope I can, to the degree that I can train my brain or expand it, the
Turn it on and off. Not
well,
turn your brain on and off, but
but the dream is to practice translating it in a way that will more easily be consumed,
mhm,
while on the other side of it, developing my idea to hang words and sort words and file ideas that requires more intricacy. But I feel like, and I was just talking about this morning to Terry. It's like, well, can I train both sides of it? Do you have to want to, to connect and culturalize it, and um, contextualize it and communicate it in a way that is
mhm,
suitable and usable. But and I think that in some ways that takes as much training as the other side of it.
yeah. Can you explain it to a 5th grader?
Yeah, yeah. And then how do you determine? Because you wouldn't want to explain it to a fifth grader if you're not talking to a fifth grader. So you would want the range. Is that what I'm trying to say?
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
and that's what explain it to a 5th grader is, like, it can be all this heady whatever, but can you distill it down to helping someone wherever they might be, fifth grader or adult, you know, wherever they might be, complexity wise in how they think about something, regardless of age, into something that is meaningful and relates to them, that's that adds value,
Mm.
right? And that's part of what putting it in words is, like you said, for all of history, is attempting to add value by sharing your experience or your exploration or your thoughts, your journey.
I'm smiling because when you said you need more words, I suspect you were not thinking I would go so far in the other direction. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Come back, because that is not what I was envisioning when I said use more words.
And yet our conversation of last week was a lot more words than I maybe had in mind in saying more words, but is certainly,
Far to the bad place.
what's that? Not so far to the, like, not entirely theoretical, but to the, um it's not quite metaphysical, although you got into that too. um huh?
It definitely is.
Yeah.
But once again, here's what I was coming up against last week. I'm like, but this is the thing. But this is what it is. We have to talk about this. It's like faking it if we're not going to talk in six dimensions. I don't even know if I said, because I gave up. I wrote the addendum, and then for the next 2 days I wrote out a more comprehensive. It's so cool. I love it. I gave it to my dad. It was really, really interesting to get a chance to talk about it and talk about it with Kip. But I was like, I think everybody needs a break. It's like I
I
think
think everybody needs a break, so let's, like, dig a whole bunch deeper and then talk about that next week.
no, I didn't. I didn't even make everybody read The Third Way. Although I do have a blog coming out this morning. You guys can check at emmadailykleinblog.com. It's called The Third Way. But I kept it super light, just as a like as a pebble in the pond. And then if you want to dig in a little deeper, then you could go to Horsemanship Insider and read the dispatch. And I didn't even bring it up on the show. Not really. So there you go.
So
But it is.
Julie said last week's discussion was esoteric, which
Who said it?
Julie, right there,
Oh, yeah.
which
Oh,
is,
yeah.
what do you think of this week's then, Julie?
This week is more sciencey.
Yes. Yeah.
But it can be too sciencey. Anyway, I just hit upon this morning in my conversations. I was like, oh, I know what I need to do. I need to train both sides,
Yeah.
and become more skilled in both ways. Whew, I think I can do it though. I mean,
You came upon that this morning, isn't that what the last one you sent me? The,
no, no,
whatever you
this
call it.
no, because I was like, we were talking about, because it was talking about tier three words, tier two and three words, and I'm like, what? I don't even know what you're saying. What does that mean? And then when it explained them, like, then I was like, oh, okay, so it's the tier one words that are the most useful for communication. The other ones are for thinking.
Hmm.
And I mean, sort of, right? Like for you, we can use another set of language, and you guys too, of course, to some degree. That's why you listen to the show. Otherwise, it'd probably be useless to you. But really and truly, it's helpful to be like, okay, this is for thinking, this is for communicating, and tier one words and what tier one words you use. Jeannie, I mean, I'm kind of talking about this right. I'm pretty sure, but anyway, my flash of inspiration is, like you said, listening to somebody else, figuring out where they're at, which you guys know at a clinic. That's why I ask so many questions. That I send the
Mhm.
questionnaire out ahead of time. And then when we're in our little huddle, it's like, tell me what's going on. Tell me what the situation is. Because there's no way around that unless I was psychic, which I am not. I'm relying on my ability to assimilate the data that I see and the data that you're telling me about all sorts of things, the history, how you feel, how you're thinking about things. Like I rely on the person so much, which is why having the student body, Michael, I think about it, the student body, that we're all so connected that we even can talk about a data set that is relevant, feelings, experiences, data collection that we can't get to in the moment. So communicating with the person about all of that, and then the physical manifestation in the horse and the partnership, that's something that I do as the coach. You do, anyone who's coaching does it too, is like then taking in what's physically happening. Also, when you can read a horse, then the horse is telling you other things too. So then you have to listen, but then when you synthesize it, like essentially what I'm paraphrasing from you, putting words in your mouth, more words, but not too many words, please. But as a teacher, or like,
Well, yeah.
you trying to not
Well,
dumb it down past what a
yeah,
person.
not dumb it down, but it's also like there are categories of words, and this is maybe the tier one, two, three, but there's words. I mean, you can describe the feeling, you can describe the mechanics, and then the blending of the two. I mean, we could just kind of parse out arenas or realms of things you might describe that ultimately you can't divorce them from one another, but like we said last week, you can't avoid the mechanics. You're and so understanding or putting words to describing the basic mechanics, your position, your angles, what this means, what that means, energy, like all the foundation basic pieces, but then what to look for and feel for in the horse, and then the feeling between you. I mean, all of those levels, you could say more words in and be thinking of more words in whatever category. Like you said, maybe wasn't thinking of more words in this category. And so it might not be, don't give me more words. It's just the words I'm looking for, the description of what I'm looking for is in this realm. Like I
And
don't understand the mechanics well enough. Explain to me what angle I'm supposed to stand at. That's like looking for a certain piece of information.
but you still, here's the part was thinking about this morning, is even if you zoom in on the thing the person needs, whether it's the philosophy or the mechanic, gymnastic, whatever it be, you still have to interact with the person using the words that they know and the words that they have context for. And
which
that's
is
the
what Diane, which is what Diane just said. It's not
well,
helpful if we don't understand. So dumbing down is not nice, but it's the idea of bringing it to a place where there's understanding, so it's helpful.
For sure. No matter how you slice it, because it could be that you're not necessarily dumbing it down. It could be that you're just using the wrong word because the person you're talking to, um associations with that word, depending on their personality or their subculture or whatever, the context that they're going to derive from that is is going to communicate something different. So this is why I'm saying learning more tier one words for me will be super helpful, just because then I can contextualize and then re-amalgamate for other people, which is not the same as dumbing it down. I heard somebody was telling me the other day that they were coaching someone, and so he was trying to explain to this other person about being more clear, and tightening the rectangle essentially. But what that person heard was contextualized in what that person's personality and job is. So what they actually heard was be firmer, force it more. Well, that's just because the context, they're framing it in their own context, right? And so,
And that's absolutely where, hearing it from someone else's perspective, like a different, same philosophy, same mechanics, same whatever, but coming out of someone else's filter is
mm,
valuable. Or what
mhm,
I find all the time is finding new ways to say it, either
right.
one month to the next, just my evolution, or going, okay, this is not getting the point across to this individual. So in the moment, you're searching for words to help their personality, their patterns, their interpretation of what you may have said for years or to hundreds of people. For them, they need additional words or different words to, as a coach, evoke from them
Mhm,
or
mhm.
connect an idea to them that evokes a different action than what you were getting using the words you were using moments ago.
That's right. And that's why language has been really interesting to kind of zoom in on this last week, even though I don't know any other language really. I mean, I got pretty good at speaking French for a while, um, but realistically, the exploration of how to use English to order ideas, to grow ideas, and then to communicate ideas. That's super interesting. I really hope that'd be really cool to get better at, because that's the whole point, and that's where I guess where I'm saying it's not really dumbing it down. And I always hate when a student feels like that. Um, because it's like it's not really. It's just trying to turn the dial. Because in horsemanship, like especially a horse lover, there's a lot I think of emotional intelligence, like or I don't know. I guess there's just draw to the middle, I guess, for people that would even be interacting with me slash us, you know. But turning the dial, this is what I do try to do. I know you try to do it. I'm sure we all try to do it as we're communicating with somebody else. You're trying to turn the dial, or you're wanting them to turn the dial, so that you kind of match up in your linguistics, such that you can understand what the hell. And like you and I have talked about for so long, it's like the scaffolding and all the words around all the words you're saying that have been said are part of how we derive meaning. So if I could learn a little bit more about linguistic scaffolding that maybe I don't use all the time, that would certainly be handy. Then so long as you can diagnose what's resonating, what's not resonating, you can tweak and tweak and tweak so that the flow of information is more effective, right, you guys? Dumbing down is not nice, but correct. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sure. Anyway, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I was talking to Terry this morning, Michael, and I'm like, once I finally hit upon that, I'm like, all right, I need a crash course for the next 2 days. Let's focus only on this, nothing else, so I can get boned up as best I can.
Tier
That's
tier one, two, three, you mean?
Yeah, mostly zoom in on tier one. It's like we have spent enough time on two and three. That's not going to be especially useful for anybody. They've, you know, so kind of, sort of, but not really. You know what I mean? That's not my job for this weekend.
Yeah, and when you take it in, yeah, never mind.
Oh, Diane says, Michael, I think you've gotten better as trying to reword things in the years I've been learning from you.
Thank you.
Mhm. That is a huge there's a certain amount of humility that has to come with that, right? And there's in other words, in order to want to do that, but probably all of us that are here this morning have a high degree of wanting to communicate. That's part of what draws us to horses, is we want to hear and be heard, you know. Jeannie, kaleidoscope metaphor for training a diverse population. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm excited, but I'm also like, I want to be good at it right now. I want to be better, like right now. But it's nice because we all have lots of scaffolding and experience together. So and then it's nice when somebody else comes from the other side, and if they and being willing to say, like, I do not understand what you're saying, or is this what you're saying? And then the horse helps us dial that in too.
So
Okay, well, I have to go. And so do
that's
you,
too.
because I'm going to go up to the airport tonight just because it's kind of going to be snowy and icy in the morning. I might be able to get away with it, but I just don't want to worry about it. So, got to get everything done. I'm going to do the questionnaire right away.
Sounds good.
So, you guys will have
So,
that.
so everyone else can fill it out.
Yeah, I was just going to say. But Terry says there's a way for me to do it in the email so you don't have to click out to something else. I've never done that, but if he helps me, then I will do that. So it'll be easier for you guys. So then Julie can just forward the email.
Sounds good.
Supposedly I mean, theoretically. We'll see. I mean, I believe. So, all right. Well,
All
thank you
right.
so much for being with us this week. Everyone at Bellwether, I cannot wait to see you. Yes, Sarah, me too. It's going to be really fun. Michael and I will be back here next Thursday morning, God willing, at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
8:30 Central.
Bye, everybody. See you later.
See ya.